All right, let's talk about something that's probably one of the most vital and, let's be honest, kind of intimidating systems in your home, your heating and cooling. We're going to break down how it works, why it fails, and most importantly, how you can make smart decisions without all the stress.
So, picture this. It's the absolute hottest day of the year. You know the one. The air is thick, the humidity is just off the charts, and the sun is beating down. All you want to do is hide out in your nice, cool house. And then, silence. The cool air stops blowing. That gentle hum from the vents that you barely even noticed before, it's gone. And this wave of heat and maybe a little dread starts to set in. Yeah, that's the moment of panic for pretty much every homeowner. But it really doesn't have to be. So what happens next? Well, let's turn that panic into a plan. Okay, first things first, we gotta understand what your system is actually up against. I want you to think of your HVAC system as your home's hidden engine. It's always chugging along in the background, but it's also constantly fighting against some pretty powerful forces, especially depending on where you live. And this quote from our source material, man, it just hits the nail on the head. For climates like, say, Michigan's, you're dealing with these huge temperature swings and often older houses. That's a brutal 1-2 punch for any machine. And this right here, this shows you the specific battles your system is fighting, like every single day. You've got clay soil that makes your house settle, which can literally pull your ductwork apart. You have freeze-thaw cycles in the winter that can crack refrigerant lines. And all that summer humidity, it doesn't just feel sticky. It creates the perfect breeding ground for mold and gunk that can clog up your system. Every single one of these is a potential knockout blow. All right, so if knowing the enemy is half the battle, let's move on to section 2 and talk about the warning signs. These are the little clues your system gives you way before it decides to completely give up on you. Here is a classic. You walk outside and you see ice, actual ice, forming on the copper lines of your air conditioner. It just feels wrong, doesn't it? Ice on a super hot day, but that's a massive red flag. It almost always means you're low on refrigerant, probably because of a tiny leak caused by those same freeze-thaw cycles we just talked about. Or how about this one? You've got that one bedroom that's always an oven, while the living room feels like a walk-in freezer. That's not just a weird quirk of your house. It's often a direct sign of leaky ductwork. You're paying good money for that cool air, and it's just leaking out into your attic or your walls, a problem that gets way worse when the foundation shifts. And this one can get messy. You find a puddle of water near your furnace or indoor unit. What's going on? Well, it's likely a clogged condensate drain. All that humidity your AC pulls out of the air turns into gallons of water. If the little drain line gets clogged with algae and junk, the water backs up and trips a safety switch, shutting the whole thing down to stop a major flood. Okay, so you've spotted one of these signs, you've made the call for help. What actually happens when a technician shows up at your door? Let's pull back the curtain on that process in section 3 so you know exactly what to expect. Look, any good technician follows a really clear 3-step process. First up is diagnostics. They don't just guess, they test the whole system, electrical, refrigerant, everything, to find the root cause of the problem. Step 2 is the repair itself. They'll explain what's wrong, give you an estimate in writing, and once you approve, they get to work. And finally, and this is so important, they verify the fix. They run your system through a few cycles to make absolutely sure it's working right before they leave. It's a method, not magic. And now for the big one, the question that keeps homeowners up at night. Your system is getting old, and the technician just gave you a quote for an expensive repair. Do you fix it, or is it time to replace the whole thing? This is a tough call, but there's a really simple tool that can help. Let's dig into what the source material calls the $5,000 rule. So, what is the $5,000 rule? Well, think of it as a guideline to stop you from throwing good money after bad. It's a quick financial calculation to help you figure out if a repair is a smart investment, or if you're just putting a Band-Aid on a sinking ship. And here's the formula. It's so simple. You just multiply the age of your system in years by the cost of the repair. If that number is more than $5,000, it's a really strong signal that replacement is probably the smarter financial move. So let's make it real. A $500 repair on a 12-year-old air conditioner? Well, 12 times 500 is 6,000. That's over 5,000. Ding, ding, ding. Time to start getting quotes for a new unit. This chart just lays out the trade-offs perfectly. Sure, a repair has a lower upfront cost, but you're stuck with higher energy bills and you're gambling on future repairs. On the other hand, replacing the system is a bigger hit now, but you get lower bills, rock-solid reliability with a warranty, and way better efficiency.
And to really understand why age is such a huge factor in that formula, just look at these typical lifespans. Furnaces might last 15, maybe 20 years, but air conditioners and heat pumps, they take a beating, especially in rough climates, and you're often looking at a lifespan of only about 12 to 15 years. This is exactly why that age calculation is so critical.
We have talked about a lot of stressful stuff. Breakdowns, big repair bills, tough decisions. But what if you could avoid most of this in the first place? In our final section, let's shift from being reactive to being proactive. Let's talk about the key to giving your system a long, healthy life. You know, a seasonal tune-up is so much more than a quick look over. A real pro is going through a whole checklist of critical tasks. They're cleaning burners and coils, testing all the electrical connections, checking the refrigerant charge, and inspecting crucial safety components, like the heat exchanger. They're basically tackling all those common failure points we talked about before they have a chance to fail.
So here's the bottom line. Proactive maintenance is all about prevention. It's about catching a small, cheap problem today before it turns into a massive, expensive emergency failure on the hottest day of the year. It saves you money, it saves you stress, and it saves you from a whole lot of sweat. And that brings us right back to where we started. That HVAC system really is the hidden engine of your home's comfort. So after all this, the only question left is your engine tuned up and ready for whatever the next season decides to throw at it?